afraid to say it's still another open mic lockdown hour, isn't it? So that's a surprise. But what can I say about this young gentleman that we've got to have a little catch up with tonight? I feel very honoured and very privileged to bring the amazing Neil Cook into our studio, and we will have a nice little catch up. So if you can do that for me, team, and bring Neil into the studio, that would be fantastic.
Hello, guys, and good evening. Hope you're all well.
Good evening, young man. Thank you for taking the time out and joining us.
It's okay. Do you know, if the show ended right now, just because you called me young man is a privilege, and anything else which comes is a bonus. But yeah, I'm always up for a good chat, and as my wife once said, I'll talk for England. So you'll have to stop me at sometimes, because I do that classic old gentleman thing and just wander off and start talking about my plants.
Hey, that's fine. It's an open mic, so again, it's all about you. I always try and start where we start off with your spiritual path and journeys and your knowledge, and share what you've come across and everything else. We always try and give a nice big circumference of everything that we've done in and around on our spiritual journey, especially yourself. And you know, it's amazing what we learn as well as we move forwards.
It is. As you know yourself, Gary, it's an amazing journey. My mum always said to me, it's a gift and you have to keep it wrapped up and use it well. As you know by the title and the announcement, my name is Neil Cook. I'm a psychic spirit medium, and it's something which I learned from a young age and only just developed it in the last 20 years or so. I'm not fully developed, but it's like everything in life. You never fully learn until it's too late, and then you move on to do other things.
Also, as well, I always found where I was on a crest of the wave, especially when I got into doing the paranormal stuff and that, and then I found a lot of people labelled me more than anything. I didn't set my TV page up, but other friends set all that up, and I feel that you go on this crest of a wave, don't you? And then you get labelled spiritual medium or psychic medium and all that, and I'm going, I'm just little me, you know. So I always find that a way of trying to downplay ourselves as well. Do you do that yourself?
Well, having the surname of Cook, Gary, I was always known as Spooky Kooky. If you've ever watched that Walt Disney film, Paranormal, which is about the little kid in the school who had that kind of psychics, mediumship, paranormal gift, then that was me. I was that fat little ginger kid at school. And other than the dinner bell, there wasn't much more going at school for me. So I was always known for my freakiness. But like I said, my mum was my tutor and trainer, and she kept me on the right path. And like I've always said in all of these interviews, she told me not to open myself up until I found my spirit guide. And like modern day age now, anyone with a very expensive PC or laptop would not switch it on without the appropriate firewall. So why would we as mediums open ourselves up to spirit and look to connect on the paranormal side or the spiritual side before we've got that protection around us, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's certainly a good explanation of describing of how when there's a time and a place to open up and not connect, and as well, going back to your early days, which we always like to touch back up on, is like, you know, to me, where you're saying you've only like been doing it 20 years and all that, you know, we all seem to have the gift as a very young age. What was your experiences on the start of your path, Neil?
Well, I was born into a family of mediums. My gran was the very old tea leaf reader. She always did that, and I mean, my gran was born in the early 20th century, I think 1911, if I remember right. My mum was born 1943, and she was more of the clairvoyant. she saw the immediate future around us, and she always told us who was coming to the door with regards to the troubles, who was pregnant, who was going to jail, all that kind of stuff. And she also saw spirit as well quite a lot, and so did my gran. And my joke was always, I knew I was going to be gifted when my gran first changed my nappy, but that's for another talk show. But it's like it was there. My mum and gran had picked up on this, but they didn't kind of induce it out of me until kind of my adolescence time. There were certain things I went back to my mum about and questioned. One of them was actually connecting to spirit itself and the voices I was hearing, because it was always muffled. And she explained it just like the old-fashioned radio tuner. Until you get right on that frequency and get the dial on the radio frequency you're looking for, then it's all going to be static and crackly. And that's one of the things she taught me first. She knew I was clairaudient, so she said, working with spirit, obviously we need to hear spirit. She set me off on the meditation side of things, so I could help to find my spirit guide, which I did. And I was suppressed in my early days of mediumship, where I could have been doing it a lot longer, but due to circumstances in life and the life path I was on at the time, it wasn't permitted for me to do it in a previous relationship. So the day things changed and I moved on, people, when I first set up my Facebook account and put myself out there, people were saying, "We've been waiting for this day, Neil, just for you to go public." I just came out of the closet.
In more ways than one, though. No offense meant by that, but
No,
good old banter. I just found, like, where you've just started the start of that there, where you mentioned your gran was born in 1911 and my nan was born in 1912. You mentioned 1943 with mum, and my dad was born in 1944. So we're in that type of generations with each other as well, aren't we? With grandma, mother.
We'll be the same age as well. We'll both be the same age, 21 as well. So some years, yeah.
I'm just coming up to 22 now.
All right, we've got the same hairstyle.
Just had a skinhead young man.
Yeah.
Amazing start of the life as well. And when you're saying this fine tuning, how do you feel that? What part of the brain? What part of your mind's eye, or where do you feel that it actually comes in with the corridor of tuning now? Where do you feel you sense it more? In the mind's eye, or the back of the mind, or the side just above the ear? Because every medium works in different ways.
Most of it will come straight in my mind's eye. I'll get all my senses alerted. I'll pick up on everything from smells to the voices. My spirit guide works with me second to none, and if without him, I couldn't do the majority of the stuff I've been doing.
Do you see him quite clearly, Neil, your guide?
Yes, I do want to put him as an example as Derek Akora, as everyone who knows Derek Akora, and I knew him quite well. He introduced himself, or they were introduced with Sam from a very early age, and they start working together, just like they did back in the previous life path. And my guide, my mum always said, "Neil, give your spirit guide the first name they answer to, and just like a dog, they'll continue to answer to it until you meet them, and then you'll find out whether it's male, female, and they'll probably give you the name as well." And I did the meditation, laid on the bed. I asked for the first voice given to me, and I was aware spirit was around me, and the first name which was given to me was Phil, and I think I said out loud, "Philip," and this strong voice, and it was an American voice, said, "No, Phil," because obviously that's what he prefers. And through our years of working together, the bond is very similar to my brother who's here on this earth plane and not the other side with him. We're inseparable. My wife sometimes jokingly calls him names and stuff like that because our relationship is, well, put it this way, he's a Texan cowboy, and our previous life path would have been in that country. He wasn't broken back, so he was very much a man, and he's without him at times, then I've struggled without his energy and information as well. I recently, on a holiday in Tunisia, did some reading just to get my international status as a medium. Unfortunately, the majority of the people I was connecting to didn't speak the native language of English, and I was struggling a little. I don't think the people understood what I was saying anyway, but with the help of Phil, my spirit guide, then we somewhat won them over a little. So yeah, sorry, I've wandered off already. So
no, I love that. I love all the wandering off. I love it. It's ace.
The early interaction with spirit was quite early, but I didn't understand it and work with it, like I said, with my adolescence. I had a few teachers on my life path as well. A good friend of mine, Anne Phoenix, Derek Okora, did a lot of coaching with me as well. And my mum, who was probably one of my best teachers anyway. And they just taught me I had to run with it. Just say what you see, just like catchphrase, whatever you say, see. And one technique my mum taught me in reading, not that she was sending me out there to do that, but she said, what you hear in your head, Neil, just imagine an imaginary sieve. What comes through and given to you, allow it to come through that imaginary sieve. And what comes through the bottom, pass it over to the person you're reading for. At the end of your reading, having made them aware that you're developing in this gift, ask them a few questions and then also ask them what was left in the sieve. And you'll find the majority of the time, which I did, the stuff I held back was for them as well. And that was my way of getting validation that what spirit was giving me was true. It was like, it wasn't just, it's like us, Gary, when we go on a ghost hunt to a place we've previously been, with our thoughts are influenced because we've already been there. We know what year the castle was built. We know what spirits we connected to last time, and we know the full history of it. So it's very hard to go to a location not already knowing what's up here. And then you start doubting yourself because you're thinking, well, I've been here before. Is my mind and spirit telling me this, or isn't my mind telling me this? So that imaginary sieve was a great help, it was.
Well, it's a great way of pre-holding it there as well, prior to going on an investigation or prior to the start of the reading. It's like you can have I always say, like a bucket there full of information, but you can't give it yet because as you connect with the person, it gets stronger. When you go on an investigation as well, what I do sometimes when you get bombarded a day or two before, I sometimes write it down on sometimes 1, 2, 3 or 4 pieces of A4 paper, put it in an envelope, and when I go across with the guest or whoever's invited me on the paranormal night, I'll just say, have a look at that, see if any of that information comes across on the night and if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But a lot of the times, the bullet points will be very strong to one specific character, I always find, or that seems to be the headline that you've made a note of as well. So I always find pen, notepad so important for us as well.
I know recently and previous paranormal expeditions, Vicky's always said, we've got an investigation coming up at the weekend, and that's all I get to know. Everything gets packed up, the paranormal side of the ITC, the cameras, and all the batteries go in a box, and I go in the boot with it as well. And then when we get to the location, it's the first time I get to see the place. Obviously, I have some inclination where we're going to because our car has windows. They haven't literally put me in the boot. And I know what city or town we're going to, or even a house. then obviously I'm going in there blind, so my thoughts aren't influenced about the location. When we go to a location we've done many times because of its activity, then I have to try and encourage the new spirits to come forward, the ones which we haven't connected to.
I always find that's good when we ask for new spirits to come forward as well, because if someone's done a place and a location a few times, you want something different to mix it up, don't we? Than
you do
the same old characters as well, or the heavier strength character as well. It's nice to I've obviously had a good international medium that's helped me with development, and he always said if someone bombards through and they're over impatient or they're not very nice attitude, then try and listen out for the little old lady in the background as well, and bring her forward first, and then let them wait as well. So you get used to that over time as well, don't you?
Yeah, we once did a local pub in our area which has a 300-year history, not only of the people in and out, but the landlords as well. Now, the first time we went to this location, a gentleman who turned out to be the landlord way back in 1897, if I remember rightly, was a very strong character, and most of the night was based around him. Now, the second time we went back, a new earlier landlord came through, and I was still aware of this other landlord, but I brought him forward and I started working with him. And this is the guy who I originally wanted to connect to, because I got two parts of the story, but on two separate visits, and we finally pieced it together what had actually happened, which we suggested was quite sinister. So it kind of made a good story in the end. We put both videos up on YouTube, and it made a good read, it did.
I certainly like how it connects as well when you've got the link, the connection, the evidence, and two or three of you have got it, and it all comes together and ties in. It does blow my mind, and I'm constantly saying that because spirits do that to me in and around where you've got the evidence.
Yeah. It's over the years I have had a twin link with a medium I've been working with, where we've both connected to the same spirit, and then obviously either of us have passed the energy over to the one who's working with him, and from there. But yeah, it's a funny old world when it comes to reading to a group of people, because I always say to them, if I'm going to read for you, then spend the day looking at the old pictures, build up the energy. If I'm coming to your location, then talk to that person you wish to connect to. Don't be silly. Talk up here or talk out loud. Put the old music on they love to listen to. Build up all that energy. And when I walk in this place, I want to be greeted by this person you want to connect to. And it normally works really well. It does.
That's a good way of looking forward to it. I mean, some mediums might ask for bring a trinket or bring a ring or something that they've passed down. And sometimes I'll say bring a photograph, but put it in an envelope so I can't see it. So I'm not prejudging. I'm just trying to get the connection that way as well. And that's always a nice way, because I think one of the first times in development I could see a lot of yellow in a picture. I think it was like a sunflower, but in like a really hot summer's day as well, and it was quite similar things to that, but it was virtually like as if it was in the cornfield when I was trying to describe it. It was just full of love and positive energy, and the glow was just yellow. Everything just seemed to be yellow in the picture, and you can't buy that.
No, we get a lot of things which are symbolic, and as we develop, we learn to understand why we're given that image, smell, or picture in your head. And I always say, without trying to make anything fit, it's symbolic what I'm getting. So I'm going to say it anyway and see what you can get from that. But like my mum always said, say what you see, Neil. If you see it, say it. You see it for a reason. Unless you're working with two separate spirits, then you're with the right person.
I always believe as well, it's like give what you're given. If they can't take it, then go and ask your friends, family, and loved ones, and your family members as well. Because the other words that they can't take or put a pin on what you're trying to explain with certain evidence and that and information, it's like that'll come round in 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks. But at some point, I usually find that somebody will have that conversation and say, "Oh, I haven't seen Joe Bloggs from down the road," and it's one of their family members, and they've just bumped into him in the street. And how's thingy doing? It just a lot of things tie in where some people might not know that they've passed recently and stuff like that. So the topic of the conversation comes around for that family member as well, which is, again, it's that I always say with spirits, they like to be remembered.
Yeah, they do, very much so. It's like a great teacher of mine once said, as much as you try your best to connect to that spirit, bearing in mind we're not conjurers, that spirit is just using the same amount of energy to connect to their loved ones. And we are that communicational device, as you've probably done many times, like my good self. I've walked down the street and I've had a message for someone walking towards me, but I would never stop anyone and preach to them. I'd let them know who I am, but that's it. But yeah, it's I get that a lot, where I've got a message, or like you said, spirit comes to you before an event or before a meeting, and you're jotting it down ready for them.
I also find as well, that's the professionalism side of it, where it's like, that you know of what you know that you know, but there's a time and a place to give that information. And if it's certainly in the high street, it's certainly not the right time or the right place, is it?
No. My mum once said to me, Neil, don't ever approach someone and read to them without them asking first, because the person you're mentioning, and a classic example she gave me is approaching a gentleman in the street and telling him he has a little boy with him and he's been with him for the last 10 years, and you assuming that it's a loved one past the spirit. This little boy could actually be the child which was killed by this drink driver. And this drink driver spent 10 years of his life rehabilitating to get over what's happened, dealing with the consequences. And then someone like me just goes up and opens the biggest, deepest wounds he's just learned to heal. So this is one of the reasons why a medium should never preach. Put your name out there, they'll come to you if they want to speak to you. It's like Facebook. I've never sent a friend's request out unless someone's asked me to, because they couldn't find me, because we're not everybody's cup of tea. With 30% in the UK believed in, where across the pond 70% believe in us. It's two different worlds when it comes to beliefs in the afterlife.
Well, I was talking the other day on Monday night, and I had a lovely guest on Monday night, and like in America over the pond, it's like where we were talking about auras and stuff like that. They actually, when they interview people, the photograph equipment, they take photographs of possible new employees on interviews as well, to see what they're bringing to the table in their aura as well. So over the States, they have come on leaps and bounds as well. But like ourselves, we know when there's certain weight or there's certain issues or problems, or I always call it a bag of coal that's on the shoulder that they're bringing to the table. So, I think over the pond, they are a little bit more open to it in like the understanding side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so. It's always been the case that I know we were first introduced to the paranormal side of things in 2003 with Most Haunted, and we didn't really see much in the TV world of anything before that. And if it was out there, then maybe we just didn't have them preview channels back then, because the digital age is still only as old as the internet. But when you watch the TV now, it's all American, which I love. And well, if it was on a graph, then there's that much UK paranormal stuff on, and then that much of the American side of the paranormal world. Can you, as a medium, see, feel, and presence around you of other people? I always feel that I have someone who's looking out for me. Yes, I know this guy. He's a friend of mine, Paul. We all have the gift of mediumship, or should I say, the intuition side of the psychic things. We often sense, hear, or smell our loved ones around us. I've always said it should only be someone connected to you who you sense, or someone who's connected to the ether which you're in. It shouldn't be anything else. And if you're sensing that, then more than likely spirit is with you. Whether it's all the time or there's a special time happening in your life where you need that guidance from the loved one.
And also, that's a fantastic question as well. So thank you for that, and well done for the answer. The in and around with your guide as well, Neil, I found like it was more as you're sitting on your right-hand shoulder. I feel like I've written down there, he's a very deep thinker, is how I feel. I feel he slows you back a little bit before he pushes you forwards as well. Do you know what I mean? He'll overprotective as well.
Absolutely. It's funny. I've never sensed that and said that myself until you just said it now. And I'm the kiddie waiting to get into the street shop, and the shopkeeper won't open the door. And until he says go, then yeah.
Deep thinker.
It's exactly that. He holds me at the starting gate until he's ready for me to go. I mean, this guy, my spirit guide, has already seen my destiny. He knows where I'm going in life and which path I should be on, and he knows how to guide me and influence me along my journey. And I'm greatly appreciative of that. But sometimes we like to think for ourselves, and we don't think from outside the box in many things we do in life, from our work to jumping in a car and driving off without putting our seatbelt on. And these guys, these spirit guides, are here just to make sure and give you that poke to say, oh, wait there a minute before you set off. Yeah, absolutely, yeah, Gary.
Because when you mentioned his name, Phil, I just felt he was like that, stood there behind you, and then he went. So I think he was trying to work me out there a little bit as well. So again, and then obviously that's what I love about the intelligence of spirits as well. And I think I found it where I think I seen too much too quick too soon. Have you ever had any experiences where you felt like, oh, that was a bit too much at a certain time in your period of life on your path?
As in reading, or just like
just you know, where you visually get you get the spiritual vision of like the cine film dropping in and seeing an image of something that's prior happened to somebody, or you've gone through a re-loop and you're walking down the street and you're going like in Portugal, my village by yours, lovely, very lovely village that's all listed and all that, and I walk down the street and the next minute I can see all the bombs in the Second World War. I can see the buildings destroyed in certain areas and obviously been rebuilt to its, you know, its splendor today. Like, but sometimes you get the images and it's just like, it's just that stopping in times and it freezes and it's so, you get the image, but you've seen it like there's a postcard of it then and there's a postcard of it now. You know, it's like that sometimes, just with things that's gone on in and around the location.
Yes, Gary, I do. I remember, whilst you're on this subject, reading Mia Dolan's book. And Mia Dolan, for the people who know, was the famous medium who did haunted homes and things like that. She was your average Joe, just like Debbie, who we had on the show the other night. It just came to her overnight. She went to bed one night and woke up the next day, and she could hear someone shouting for the dog in the room. Mia Dolan was hanging washing on a washing line, and she looked over the top of the washing line, and the backdrop of the landscape fell away, and she could see what was once there. And it happens a lot, not so much with trauma and things like that, but whether it's something I've learned to do where I strip back time and then look for the validation on what I'm hearing and going, as in the remote viewing side of it. I have seen things briefly happen before they've happened, and I did that in my young age, and I can remember drawing the picture and telling my mum for some reason this is going to happen. And before I could finish telling my mum, I felt a huge slap from my father across the back of the head. And he said, "Don't you bloody start this as well, son." And it happened as well. And I must have
Yeah.
been 8 or 9 years of age. And I mean, he was a lot more colourful in saying it, but I've kept it clean. And the next day, these two cars outside of our home didn't crash together, but yes, they did. But they missed the little girl who ran between them. The first thing my mum said was, "I told you." I'd already said it was going to happen.
It's like where we see a youngster, and you know, obviously I've just become a granddad, which I'm very, very proud of. But when you see a youngster and you look in their eyes and the soul, it's like you've been here before. And I feel that you're going to be a lot more spiritual than I am. You know, if they take that path, that's entirely what their guides look after them with. And sometimes where you can just, you know, your kids have got the gift, but sometimes some run with it, some don't, and stuff like that as well, isn't it? So your family members and links and connections, it just seems to sometimes can miss a generation, but when it comes back strong, it just seems to come back with the kitchen sink of that person that's got it. 8 years old is just a phenomenal age to have that experience.
My daughter was born in 97, and around the age of 10, I picked up on her spiritual guide who was with her, and it was a female called Heather. And although I didn't directly meet her spirit guide, but I was made aware of her, all I said to her spirit guide and to the higher side of life was, if Courtney is going to be somewhat psychic or spiritual, then I ask the higher side of life to assist her on the journey. And if she gets half of the protection I got on my journey, then it's more than enough. And I've asked for that to happen many a times. And other people who've often said, "Neil, how come I don't pick up on my guide? I can hear voices and spirit and things like that." But we don't all get this ability. Some may be clairaudient but not sensious. Some may be sensious. And it's like my teacher said, not all psychics are mediums, but all mediums are psychic. It's you're either going to get that or you're not, and it's all part of your development journey. And it's how much you open up this part of your brain, which as a child you lose, like you just said with your grandchild. Children come into this earth with no clutter in their minds. There's no mortgage, no girlfriends, no car payments, no boyfriends, no anything. And it's these children's imaginary friends are probably connection with spirit. And they're staring into the corner of the room and mumbling a baby language to someone who isn't there. They're also in the younger youth, as toddlers, talking and mentioning names about a playmate they have in the room who's playing with the toy cars. More than likely, they've reconnected to a previous life path and their spirit guide, who's now grown old with them in the spiritual life and them on the earth plane. I don't have any recollection of my spirit guide from a younger age, but I did like country and western films, so maybe that was the link. I watched a lot of John Wayne.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a link around that as well. And you are drawn to that type of scenario. And as you're talking, I'm getting chatter back as well, like sort of your guide and my guide. And a lot of people don't understand that people's guides, if you're in the same room, we might not be talking, but your guides will go off and have a natter about each other. And a lot of people don't see that. Do you know what? A lot of people have really never asked me what my guide's name is. I know it's not about me, but when you was talking about Phil, I was going, I forgot what I call him now, because you connect and link with him. I was like, oh yeah, I always call him Jezza. It's more like Jamiroquai, but I always call him Jezza, and I get told off for that. But in a way of, I have other little guides coming in around at different times in different periods as well. Do you find any energies coming in that's helping you and nudging in the right direction, as well as your guide at different times and different periods where you might go through a stressful week, you might get the odd one or two that's connecting and linking?
I do. I've always said, I've always said that we're influencing life on our spiritual journey to our destination. Our timeline begins there and it ends there, but we don't know how long that gap is from start to finish. But spirit, we often think we're making the right decisions in life, on the journey in life, and I don't mean decisions in what do I get my daughter for her next birthday, but valuable spiritual decisions which would or won't play a major problem going forward with them. So I'm always aware that we're influenced by spirit, just like you said. If it's not my spirit guide saying, I would prefer you do this instead, or other spirit guides which I've connected to when working with good people like yourself, and they've kind of nudged me in the right direction. I can remember Anne Phoenix, who I've worked with, who runs the local spiritual church. The first day I met her, there was a nun stood next to her, and I said, "Oh, Anne, you've got a nun stood with you." She said, "Yep, that's my spirit guide." And straight away she made it. I mean, she must have knew I was a good person, but I've never seen my wife's spirit guide, so maybe they know I'm not a good person. Jokes aside.
If you see a rolling pin and you've done something wrong,
if I see a
rolling pin.
I come walking in the other night. I came walking in the other night and she had a rolling pin in her hand. I said, "You're not cooking this time of night, are you?"
Oh God, sorry. I don't know where that come from, by the way. Obviously, you're a caring, straightforward reader as well, aren't you? You know, it's always good to be direct and down the middle as well. I don't mean holding back from any certain informations that you might be given on a reading. It's like I always find there's a professional way to nudge people in the right direction as well of where you're coming from, but without specifically giving something that they should know, but they shouldn't over worry about as well. Do you hold back on anything like that? And I don't mean hold back. I don't mean it in that way. What I mean is it's like you don't need a reading for another 12 months. Come back and see me in 12 months, but you know what they're going to come back with that they've gone through as well, if you get what I mean. Because you know the chapters that's coming ahead, but you've got to let it run its course as well, haven't you?
Yeah. I've always been asked, do I do tarot guides and clairvoyancy? And they're pretty much the same thing. And I've always said that I would never talk about anything in the foreseeable future and send you off on that path in life, knowing that you potentially could get lost, stranded, and give up a lot this end in life, only to find out I was wrong or it didn't happen. And nor should you take any advice from any person who spiritually says you should leave everything here and move across the pond because there's a destiny there for you, because you'll get there and you'll be sat out on the streets with your shopping cart and lots of empty aluminium cans. You never project that kind of information to anyone. Yes, I see. I get a lot of information on a reading, and some I do hold back. There's some I want to break the link to. So what I do is I move back to the edge and just keep with the nice stuff, because we've all had trauma in our lives. We've all had our trials and tribulations, and there's only so much, whether it's on a one-to-one or on a group reading, that you can say or you want to say, and even messages from spirit of the other side. I've broke the link because it was the wrong person who needed to connect to her, but they were adamant they wanted to, and what information I was given from the start, there was no way I was going to speak to this person and tell him who was here and why. So yeah, you do have to hold back on some information. I've never told anyone to set off into the sunset with a backpack because there's rainbows and unicorns. I've always said, just look on the outside of where you're at now and work with that. Our destiny is always there. You'll never make the wrong choice in life. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I mean, I came from a part of Middlesbrough, which you learned to drive at the age of 6, whether you took your dad's car or someone else. And it was a rough neighbourhood, but it was a good community. And statistically, I should be still on that wrong foot. And I'm not saying people in this area never do any better. What I'm saying is the people I hung around with as a child, I should have been misled because I was at school. Like I said to you earlier on, my favourite musical instrument at school was the dinner bell, and I think that's the only thing I ever learned. After that was the best place to lie, so you didn't have to go into the next lesson. I didn't do well at school, not only with the girls, but maths and English. So that I was never going to have a. I mean, like I said to you, Gary, I have a woodwork shop behind that door and I build things, but I'll measure 50 times before I cut. I don't measure twice and cut once because I don't know math and my English is pretty good, but it's like you develop on your. I don't think what I'm saying is, and some people might agree with what I'm saying here, someone in this chat now tell me that everything they did in school, they're using that now to where they're at. Unless you're a mathematician and you're a bank manager, then yes, I'll give you that. But what are we doing now, what we spent 30 years of our life learning?
I can give you the perfect example about that. I mean, obviously, I'm around education and that, but it's when I was in school, I hated history, and now it's such a massive part of my life with what we come across, and it's just like, wow, I never thought I would need that at school, you know. So looking back at it, you know, and you recap and your geography and all that of what's going on in certain planes around the world, of like, you know, your ley lines and stuff like that. So a lot of places that we get drawn to, you think, oh, I've heard such and such point that out, but many a days back, got to go down to the Battle of Hastings in 1066 and stuff like that. So you are drawn to going back to all these historical places as well. There's been some good points been coming in as well on the chat as well. And Kath was saying, like, that's where you was talking earlier on before, saying that's where a lot of your strength and your strong free will comes in with the professionalism as well. Definitely, most definitely with that. Touch on, I want to go back to what my first notes. I haven't even asked the first question yet, basically. It's because I love talking everything spiritually. Obviously, you've done Sky TV, GSI Paranormal, Really TV, Project Paranormal, host on the local radio and stuff like that. So we'll do a little recap on that as well. Also, I do like to keep things very private as well. I do know that you've gone through heartache and some tragedies on your path as well. And as we're growing and developing as well, I think that makes us stronger people as well, doesn't it?
Well, you mentioned something from a bio with regards to having experienced that tragedy yourself. And I don't mind talking about it. I may get upset, but in 2011, I lost my mum, my dad, and my sister to spirit, all in a short period of time. Now, all my readings up to that time, I couldn't always sympathize and empathize with people who'd lost their loved ones in very tragic circumstances, from the stillborn right way up to the much loved grandma. And although I was just the radiogram reading back what I was being told, I couldn't sit there and like just push spiritualism to one side and say, well, this is how I dealt with it, right? But ever since 2011, a lot of people I've spoke to, they've strummed my chords as well. And not only mediumship, but my life skills and hacks have also been part of the reading, because I can empathize with people saying, do you know what? When my mum died, I couldn't even talk a sentence about her because I cried. But the next week, I talked a paragraph, and when someone said, "How's things?" I told them this much of the life story, and now I could sit here all night and tell you all of the lifespan of my three loved ones in spirit, my immediate family, and it made me. I want to say, without not blow my own trumpet, is a more experienced reader, a more caring reader, because when people were saying, "I'm looking to connect to this person because of this," do you know what? I think it helped me address what was coming through a lot easier as well. It was easier to say it because I'd been there myself. I could understand it more.
You nudge each other as well in the right direction again, don't you? You as a reader, you're buffering that person's support and strength, and then you're getting that exchange back as well, aren't you?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I've sat there and cried with the information I've been given and been asked to pass it over. But the sole reason I was there in the first place, Gary, was they wanted to connect to this person. Unfortunately, there was tragic circumstances to this child's life, and not because I'd lost a child, but I'd lost a loved one, and we held each other's hands, and I cried with them because I'd recently been bereaved of my loved ones as well. So it's. I mean, if anything, I was comfort to them because I wasn't just some guy who turned up for a quick buck, and I mean dollar, not anything else. But I turned up for. I mean, I've never charged for everything I've done other than a packet of chocolate hobnobs and a good coffee. It's no, seriously. You can ask any person I've ever read for who might be in the chat now or anywhere else. Will tell you. They've never given me $1 for anything I've done, unless it's been an event I've been paid and hired to do. Yeah.
I've just had a lovely inbox off somebody that's watching as well, and they said, "Oh, what a lovely character, what a lovely person as well," you know. So again, just a wonderful person there as well, just inboxing us as well. So I do get a few cheeky followers as well. Again, so a lot of the time as you're moving forwards, your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, your clairsentience, is there any part that you have new spiritual levels and you've gone higher and all that? Do you think, is there an area where I'd like to do the drawing, the spiritual artist drawing? Again, I got told that'll come in as and when it comes in, if it comes in. Is there anything that you'd like to push yourself with moving forwards?
I'm happy where I'm at. If I'm going to make it big with anything in life, from developing, like you've said, to the silver screens, then it'll happen when it's going to happen. There's a lot of people in this business for a lot more than just me and you sat here talking and having a good giggle. My mum said it was a gift, so don't ever ask for money back for what you're giving them as a gift anyway. It was given to you free of charge, and don't charge them. And since that day she said that, like I said, the only thing I've ever done is ask for me expenses to drive to the other end of the country and cover costs. Venues we've hired, the ticket sales have paid for the venue and a plate full of cakes on the table. Drawing, I'd struggle to draw unless it was someone else drawing through me, as in a spiritual guide or spirit itself doing that. Yes, I would love that. If I don't achieve anything else now on my spiritual journey with spiritualism, Gary, at the age of 51, I'll die a proud man, because the things I've done right up until how old I am now, I'm very proud of, and I know there's people proud of me as well. And even if I've done that much on my spiritual journey, it's that much more than what I wasn't going to do or wasn't going to push myself forward for. And like Tesco said, every little helps. So I think I've achieved that.
And again, I'm just going to thank Kathy for tuning in there. She says she's got to go. So if anyone's got any more questions, feel free to ask. We'll try and cover it. We'll try and tick the boxes for you with any help and support that we can as well. Over your paranormal experience as well and investigations, what would you say? You know, I've got a couple of notes written down, and what would you say some of your great captures and your great evidence that you've really come across? You know, I know you've been in the Daily Mirror and stuff like that as well. Can you give us any experiences there for the folks that's watching?
If you type in Google Neil Cook ghosts, you will see some of the good things which have gone to the press. Me and GSI originated when me and my now wife got together. I met her on a ghost hunt, so you could see I put the willies up her. So we teamed up. It's a terminology, isn't it? So we teamed up as I was the medium, she was a paranormal investigator, and one of her good friends, Jan, who's probably watching now as we speak, we became a team called GSI Paranormal. And then whilst on a ghost hunt, we met up with two amazing guys called Shane Corbett and Andrew Alexandra. And if you're watching Andrew, you're still the most beautiful one. And we formed the Paranormal Family. It was a combination of GSI West Yorkshire and GSI North East. And we went down to Taunton, which is in North Yorkshire or West Yorkshire, wherever it is, might be South Yorkshire actually. And back on Palm Sunday, probably 554 years ago to the date, we went on Palm Sunday again, or on that date. And for anyone who doesn't know Taunton, the Lancashires and the Yorkshiremen all fought in one field for over 24 hours, and 88,000 people died, soldiers in that field. And we're talking way back, like in, I think, the late 1500s, early 1600s. 88,000 people died, soldiers, in that field within the first hour. And the soldiers went on to slaughter the wounded, and it was one of the biggest, bloodiest battles on British soil. And the villagers said that there was that much blood in the field, the rivers ran red for weeks and weeks and weeks as it seeped out the ground. So we thought, as a trigger object, let's go on that day as an anniversary when most paranormal tends to come back to the surface. And for the duration, me as a medium connected to a lot, the guys, David and oh God, what's his name? Bloody hell, Shane and Andrew, bloody hell, went out my head there, his name. Shane and Andrew were using the paranormal stuff.
2 seconds.
And we connected to more than one spirit, but do you need to get that? Is that a phone or something? So for the whole duration we were there, we could hear a horse or horses near us. Now this is 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of nowhere, and we kept referring to hearing a horse, and it just sounded like every now and then it would bang its foot down, and you could hear the hoof hitting the hard gravel and dirt. Well, at the end of the night, we took a selfie of the three of us stood together, and a year to the date of that selfie, I put it on my big screen and looked at it, and in the background there was an image. So as I lightened the screen, there was a soldier sat on horseback, stood behind us in the field. Now, I don't know if this was my spirit guide, my cowboy on his horse, or if it was a soldier dating back to the actual incident, the actual event on Palm Sunday. I'd like to think it was my spirit guide, or was it something else? But on the article in the news, in the Daily Mail, I think it was, it shows you this gentleman-like figure sat on horseback, just slightly over a hill. That was a really good catch and a really good night with them two guys. We did a local coach in the area, which was the Fox Inn. And like I said, there was 2 stories to that because we went back twice. And we actually caught the little girl on camera moving from the one side of the bar area to the other. And also the face of the pilot who flew the helicopter, which is located at the Air Museum in Sunderland Air Museum. So, I mean, a lot of the most amazing things I've ever caught is everything I've dealt with. I mean, it's if everyone could only see and hear what I see, then I mean, it's a lifetime all in one go. The rest you just have to take my word for it.
Oh, I know. Where can people catch up with your groups, your teams? I know you're on Instagram and Facebook and all that. Do you want to give have you got any sites where people can contact you for any readings in the future or anything like that?
So I'm on Facebook as Spirit Medium Neil, or it'll say Neil Cook Spirit Medium, because I think Facebook was looking for people with names in the title and then removing them. So Neil Cook, you'll see me in my wedding suit as my photo, and then it'll say Spirit Medium. I also have a public figure page, which is exactly the same name, Neil Cook. But if you come along to the first page, you'll probably automatically get an invite from my admin anyway. And we're also on YouTube as GSI Paranormal, and there's that's there. And there's also my YouTube channel, which is Spirit Medium Neil Cook. Now, if you come across to my YouTube channel, you'll also see a playlist for the Psychic Chef, because I'm an ex-chef, so I do a lot of cooking on there. You'll see my woodworking playlist. You'll see my dashcam video playlist, and you'll also see my spiritualism. There's a few full episodes of things which have appeared on TV on there as well. And this autumn, we were up in Jedburgh Jail and Inverness Jail, and we filmed for a company called True Ghost Stories, which it's aired in America, and it's done its rounds across the screens in America and the channels. And now it's coming over to here. The first episodes go out tomorrow, and it was a company which just did raw paranormal. They captured everything you captured without editing in it, and then they took it away. And it's each episode we've done and everyone else has done is just going to go out in the episodes, and it'll just be seen as it happened, as it unfolded out from start to finish. So look out for me on that as well, True Ghost Stories, which will probably be either really TV or the other ones, which are all paranormal.
And also as well, when you went up to Inverness jail and all that, I'm always drawn to the castle there as well, because I do see I've seen it had a fire many years ago, and the gentleman that owned it thanked all the villagers for helping with the fire at the time in the castle. And even just watching something like that, I was getting spirit energies coming through as well. So I always get drawn to places, even if you go into like sort of Inverness, or you go into, I don't know, Carlisle or anywhere like that. There's always something that starts that going with the link and the connection as well. It's just amazing.
I think wherever we travel in life, Gary, we'll walk through the energy of yesteryear, and we'll want to connect, whether it's a castle, whether it's a museum, or whether it's something else. We'll stop dead in our tracks, and our mind will be taken away from the shopping or something else, and you start connecting with the ether, what was once there. I know my local supermarket's built on top of a mine, and I often see miners walking through the aisles, and I don't mean up and down with a shopping cart, but their energy as they walk to and from the mine is passing by me whilst I'm in the yogurt aisle.
It certainly is. I've been to around Wigan Way, where I've done a coal mine and that, and obviously there was a few disasters there in the, lives lost in the pit and all that, and I had to go back a week later to help like lost trapped souls that obviously still wanted more communication from when we'd done the investigation. Do you ever find yourself going back to have a little bit more of a one-to-one with the spirits to try and settle them down a little bit as well, or take some of the frustration out of what's gone on?
I did do that at the Coach Inn because there was a lot of trauma which happened there, and there was one negative spirit who was a previous landlord, and this lady who'd been attacked in this location, and a child was there too. I kind of just wanted to tell him that I was here to help. The girl wasn't very talkative, the mother was, and all I wanted to do was send them back across across the veil, just with that happy thought. There's places I've been to where it's been reaped in trauma, like the Battle of Taunton, where I could physically see bodies and bodies and bodies laid upon top of each other as they ran away from the battle. Some were still showing themselves as dying, some were already dead, and it was a play on time, the stone tape theory effect. And sometimes you're just helpless in what you want to do. You're dealing with residual energy and not intelligent energy, but it certainly pulls on your heartstrings, and that goes straight back to the one-to-one readings where your life experiences are brought back to the surface, just in the messages you're giving to the person who's trying to connect to their loved ones as well.
Also, as well, we've got Tracy Watson says up the Borough, but I don't know what that means.
Well, Borough, probably Middlesbrough football team. Borough being Middlesbrough, unless she's from Scarborough. But yeah, she's probably given a shout out because I'm originally a Middlesbrough boy or a Borough boy. I can't stand football. No offence to anyone. I'm a rugby man, but football's for girls.
A good friend of mine played for Middlesbrough many moons ago, but he went on to be an electrician in the end of his days. Another question. I don't want to keep you too long because I think we ended up an hour and 45 minutes the other night. Because
I'm not on the clock. You've got me as long as the people want to chat. I'm in no rush.
Okay. Jan says it was a great night in the blackout room with the blacksmith. The name was linked with 3 devices by spirits, a figure, shadow on the connect, as well as to her. Took a dislike to her and got right in her face as well.
So we went to an old mine, which is in Skinning Grove, which is about 2 miles away from here. And the majority of the mine is still there, but for safety reasons, you can only venture so much into the mine. But all the old machinery and the blacksmith's anvil and the burner and everything there is still all set out. So as you know, as a medium, Gary, you have a lot of residual energy, which is playing out what it used to do back in its day. But you also have the intelligent energy, which is that ghost who comes back and forth in our ether to communicate. Now, I picked up on this energy of this spirit, and for some reason the name Malcolm came to mind. Whether that was his name or not, Jan might know. She's the researcher. Jan is actually our researcher for the ghost hunts. And we asked this energy. We went into what's called the blackout room. In order for a miner to enter the mine, he had to sit for so long in a blackout room so his eyes could adjust. So we sat in. Oh, have you seen this? What's this flying around me? Going that way. It's probably dust or burnt skin on my head. So we sat out in this blacksmith room, trying to adapt our eyes to the light. And the energy of this gentleman was in the room, and I kept asking him to walk around within the circle and stop at who he wanted to. Now, he took a liking to Jan, and he kept stopping, and I could see him in my mind's eye this far away from his face, but I didn't want to tell Jan that because I didn't want alarmed because of his presence. And this is going back to saying we're all psychic, we all have the ability to connect to spirit. And Jan, unbeknownst to me, must have felt his presence and probably how close he was to her. And the word begin with F, what she shouted, and you was the end sentence. And he just went like that. But she said it so loud in an atmosphere, which was, you could have heard a pin drop, and all of a sudden Jan shouts at the top of her voice, "Will you do one?" And we all jumped. But that was he had a very strong demeanor presence, he did, this guy. And it was the equivalent to the movie Ghost, where Patrick Swayze jumps onto the train and that guy says, "Get off my train, it's my train, get off." And it was that kind of "what you're doing in my workshop" type of thing. It was a very strong character. Yeah.
Because it is the domain of energy of his environment, that type of thing, isn't it, as well? So they're still, spiritually, there's no time conception. So when they're seeing human forms in and around, or whatever way they might portray us as just like a little glow of light, or whatever way spirits see us, that's always, for me, to be an unexplained question that we've not had answered, because we're not on that side. So how spirits connect with us, they're still seeing us as something's in their environment, isn't it?
Well, I was interviewed a couple of weeks back on The Truth About Paranormal UK, and I turned around and I said to Matty on the show, "Are we the living hunting the dead, or are we actually dead and this is hell, and we are hunting the living on that side of the veil?" And he turned around after rubbing his bearded chin and said, "That's where I can't repeat his words as well." He said, "But that's mind blowing." He said, "The more I think about it, the more my head hurts. Who's hunting? No, are we hunting them, or are they hunting us?" And I know hell is a man-made word which was created by the church, and it was like, we make our own hell, and believe me, there's nothing down there other than soil. Our heaven is all around us, because our loved ones in heaven do not sit on a cloud somewhere high in the sky watching jumbos flying about. And this is why we connect to spirit quite often, and we sense and feel and smell them, because the spiritual side is just slightly out of frequency to where we are now. And like I talked about earlier, about tuning that volume knob until we got the right channel. Well, every now and then, each and every one of us will go slightly out of sync with our ether, and we'll connect to theirs like that. And as soon as we come on line with them like that, we hear, see, or smell them. And then all of a sudden, because we're not all psychic, or not all have the ability to connect to spirit, we go out of sync again. So our loved ones in this space here, and all around us, nowhere else. So that's why.
As you're describing that, you was describing that, Neil, sorry, the bands of the waves that mediums work in, and it's like your dog hearing and your bat noises and all that. Sometimes if I get too much of a high pitch prior to it happening, I'm already covering my ears up. I was with Eamon Van Harris, and he was obviously developed this machine, and he was telling me how you're explaining it is where we were going through the band waves, but there's certain band waves that connect and link in. It's like, I think it's the Panasonic DRS 6060 EVP, just seems to be in the right band and the right frame and get the right amount of response on the EVPs as well. So that's why I feel more people have a better response with certain equipment on the EVPs than on that wavelength of what spirits are within the band as well. So sometimes you can have 2 or 3 EVPs running. Certain ones will pick up stuff and certain ones won't as well. So it's always worth experimenting with different types of EVPs as well in different locations. Have a couple running, but you can understand how that connection works on the filter as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. It's one of my friends who's a medium, Paul. We're doing something this weekend, or very soon, one of the weekends. A friend of his has bought a pub, but they're turning it into a day nursery. And whilst they're renovating the place, they're messing with the fabric of the building. And we all know as mediums that if you start messing with their property, i.e. the spiritual world, you're messing with the fabric and many, many years of history which is attached there. And based on the stone tape theory, where the energy is absorbed into the fabric of the building, then you're going to have paranormal activity. So he's asked me to go, but the reason why I give him a shout out was one of the things he taught me inadvertently was on a daily basis, our mind is the equivalent to Radio 1. There's that much going on, from a DJ shouting in it to the latest A-sided music going bang, 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 and all the adverts and everything else. You're never going to connect to that frequency. So through meditation, we need to get from Radio 1 all the way down to Radio 5. And in order to do that in the hypnotic state of meditation and connecting to spirit, once we get to Radio 5 and quiet our mind to the extent that you can hear a pin drop, then this is where we're going to get on that balance and the same wavelength of frequency as spirit. And I remember my first hearing of spirit, and I was laid in the bathtub, chilling out with my big toes stuck in an old Victorian bathtub, and I was like watching the submarine going up and down the bath, and I heard spirit for the first time. And the only way I could hear it was if though I was laid underwater and someone was saying, "Come on, Neil, get out of the bath." It was like that. Yeah, muffled. It's just that I had earphones on, and I don't think earphones were invented back in them days. And I can remember saying to my mum, "I could hear something, Mum. I wasn't sure what it was." And she said, "What did it sound like?" I said, "I can remember once holding my breath and going underwater, and you coming in the bathroom and telling me to get out of the water. And although I could see what you were telling me to do, I couldn't hear you, and it was that kind of noise I could hear." And it was my mum who said that we have to connect to their frequency, and we're slightly out of sync. And until through meditation we can bring ourselves right down. And just remember, all these people who are going to ask the question, will I ever connect to spirit? You probably already have done many times in the hypnotic state of sleep. When we're at that point where we're about to fall, anyone see that bright light come out my head and go up in the ceiling? Time stamp it. So 22:13, something like a ball of light come up from there and went straight up. So when we're falling asleep at night and all the work's gone out of our head, and we've decided what we're buying for dinner next week, and we've realised that the lawn needs mowing at the weekend, then when we get to that part where we're drifting in and out of sleep, we'll all hear spirit say to ourselves, "Neil." And all of a sudden you wake up and you hear it. And that is because we're in that hypnotic state where we're more likely to connect to spirit on their frequency. And there'll be a lot of you now who've heard your name being called, and you probably turned to your partner and said, "Have you just said my name?" And he'll say, "Go back to sleep," and push you back down. And this is spirit connecting to you. This is when the frequency in our mind is at Radio 5. It's at that level where, other than that level, you're going to fall asleep. And this is how hypnosis is done as well, with going back into history of things to get your mind right to that hypnotic state where you'll then connect with spirit in your past life as well.
Do you also, I know we're coming quite close to the end of the show and all that, any events coming up? Do you also, as well, another question I wanted to answer, do you do any channeling or anything like that? Because I do the transfiguration and the channeling. I always try and get people to experience in the trance and the channeling on an event as well, because it's just something that I enjoy doing.
You were talking about your mum when the light came out of my head. Jan's just mentioned that light. I don't channel other than with myself and connecting to spirit, and I don't do transfiguration, but I have some good friends who do. But we do a lot in experiments on the paranormal event. So a classic example would be at Gainsborough at the Old Nick Theatre, where spirit was working with us, then it wasn't. So we started working with mirror scrying. I was building up the energy myself. I'm a spirit guide. excuse me, you've got the hiccups, I think. And I got spirit to work with us, and I picked a subject. That sounds wrong. I picked a person and said, right, I want you all to work with this person, as in spirit, with this living being. And I channeled my energy and everyone else's on request. And I wouldn't say she was possessed, because I don't believe in that in a big deal. It's kind of a meditated state. I've never allowed myself to be possessed, so until I experience it, then I'm not a great lover of that. But we will do other experiments as well, where we'll use spirit energy in our own to manipulate people. And I don't mean twist the arm up the back until they scream, but we'll stand someone in a doorway and ask the energy to push them out of that doorway. Because you have to remember, a lot of spirit will still walk this earth plane as they did in this location way back then. So there's no spirits walking through walls and through ceilings unless you change the layout of the building. Forthcoming events, COVID has kept us really quiet for the last 2 years due to the pandemic. And although there's a lot of things we want to do in the foreseeable future, some of the big companies out there who, with respect to solely there to line their pockets, they've raided the bank and already bought all these venues up. So a lot of things my managers inquired about have already been taken, or I do a lot around Halloween. I work a lot freelance, more than I do with GSI Paranormal. So I let myself go. If anyone wants to hire me for an event to host their event, then that's something I do quite a lot. So up to now, it'll probably be private investigations we'll be doing, and I like to do the ghost walks as well. So we normally get our good friends who are on here, your Michaels, your Jans, your Helens, your people like that, and bring them along with us, and just do a historic walk. And if spirit connects while we're doing it, then it's a bonus.
It certainly is, and that's what's good about doing your local walks and getting out and about and bringing everything to the table. I always find as well. Right, I am going to say thank you for your time, and I think we're on 1 hour and 17 minutes now. Is again, just been a pleasure and sharing your knowledge and everything that you've come across as well. And thank you for everybody interacting. I do know you've had your lovely, is it your second vaccine today?
Yeah, no, I had it yesterday, but it's wiped me out. I've got a tea towel here because before the chat, I've got flu-like symptoms, which is one of the side effects of the vaccine. The first vaccine only made me ill for the day. Now, this is my second day after the vaccine, and I think I'm going to be shouting my wife to come and lift me out of this chair, because every limb, other than my arms, aching. I know I need some more paracetamol. I was sick earlier on. I had a bit of nausea, and this is again one of the side effects. So I was a little worried that this show might not have gone ahead without me spraying the camera, but fortunately that settled down. The only qualm now is my knees, my joints, my neck is really sore, and that's one of the main side effects I've suffered today with it. So send out them healing prayers, and I'll send them back to you tenfold. But before you go, it's been a great pleasure talking to you, Gary. I've watched your work for many years. I've watched your channel, even though I wasn't following it. You always came up in my live feeds anyway. And you're really good at what you're doing and everything you've done. I've known you on social media for a while, but this is the first time we've physically spoken one-to-one. And it's if you're ever in my neighbourhood, give me a shout and you can come to my palace. One thing I know you'll like is I'm a great collector of the 80s and 90s music, and there's all my vintage hi-fi stuff there. Now, I could reel 10 audio cassettes straight off the top, and I bet you had every one of them in your collection back in your day, from level 42 down to Barry Manuel.
Well, it's been a pleasure. And again, thanks for hitting a note with the, I've just made up you've got through the show and that. And I've toured with you too. I've met China Crisis.
Right.
I've got OMD. My mum worked with Humphrey's mother. So I've got quite a big connection around the Northwest. So I've seen some amazing bands as well, and I do love music. I've done the music scene for a while and played football for 35 years, but the 80s and the 90s, I think we were very, very blessed. Gutted I never seen Freddie sing, and gutted I didn't see Bowie. But again, it was just. I think we were in great times back then as well, and the music just was mind blowing.
I'll just say one thing while we're on about this, and my love of the 80s and 90s is, I mentioned previously in this chat about my life being suppressed and not being able to do the things I ever wanted to do. As a child, I watched every woodwork program on TV, from the New Yankee Workshop to that guy who used on the English TV, get his name, and he did woodwork, and I always wanted to get into it, but I never had the opportunity to do it. My two brothers had the latest technology back in the 70s and 80s, but compared to what's available now, it was top end back then. And I always wanted a hi-fi of my own, and the only thing I got was a boom box, which was a Toshiba, and I had to buy it myself. And it's like everything I never had as a child, I want now. And so with the good love of my wife, she turned around and said, right, what is it you want to do, Neil? And I said, well, I've always wanted this. So she gave me a blank check, and I went out and bought every tool I needed. And every furniture in this house now, right down to that hi-fi cabinet, is being built by myself. The only two pieces of furniture we moved into this house with was a bed and a sofa, and the rest I built, and it's all bespoke. Every audio cassette I never got to buy in the 80s and 90s, there's 1,000 audio cassettes there. Some will play, some will won't. I've just snapped my Rick Ashley album, so I'm really gutted about that. But every audio cassette, a friend of mine, Darren's collecting them for me. All them ones you've mentioned, I've got all the albums, all of it's like, and I sit in this room now. It's been built, and I've got the new roof on with my headphones, and this is my chill out room. That's why I've chose to do the live stream here, and I'll sit for hours listening to all them hits of the 80s.
I'd like to meet Noel. I've got big connections with John Lennon because that's where my mum and dad met each other at a Beatles concert in '63.
Yeah,
I live 700 yards away from where my mum and dad met each other at the Civic Hall, and obviously I've had messages from the Dakota buildings and all around there. So I do need to get to New York at one point. But again, likewise with the Invest down here, if you ever feel like you need to come along, just join in as well. Just let me know if you see an event with that and all that as well. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had an amazing week with talking to people, and you've been right up there as well with sharing all that. And I love all the music as well. And the last note I'm going to say is, when I played football from 5 till 37, the week before I finished, I went and bought a pair of World Cup football boots because they were always the boots I wanted. I couldn't afford them. I bought a pair on my last game, and then I gave them away to a young lad who had the same size feet straight after that. Wow. But that was a goal, but I give them away straight after a week or two after they had finished, and hung them up. I said, there you go. They were always my dream, but we couldn't afford them back in the day,
Yeah. One of my philosophies, I know we're ready to go and time's pushing, but one of my philosophies was always be the yes person, the yes man, the yes person, and don't put something to one side for a special occasion, because I once found out that leaving something aside for a person for a special occasion, they never ever got to use it because obviously it wasn't their time. So that's my philosophy now. So whatever you bought brand new, whichever perfume or cologne you bought, your brand new shoes, your brand new suit, your tie, the something you need, do it now, because the only gift you're going to get in life daily is opening these eyes. And if you don't get to do that special occasion now, you may not ever get to do it. So I'll finish on that note. A big, massive thank you to your good self, Karen, and all the people who've been watching. I'm going to read all the comments now because I've got no comments up here. And if there's still any more questions people want to ask, then I'm up all night. That's a song, that, isn't it? Yeah, but I'm here all night. Yeah.
And Jennifer from Canada, she's just tuned in. She said there was an orb on your right hand of your head when you look back on the video.
Yeah, about 22, 23, I think. No, earlier than that. 22:13 or 10:13. As John said, as I mentioned.
1 hour 12, 1 hour 13 it was.
Yeah. Something bright, and it was like a funny shape. I'm not a believer in orb. I believe in Dyson vacuum cleaners, but this was like a funny shape, mist come up out my head. It's probably steam or something. I might need to dry it or something. Right, have a good night, everyone.
All right, if you stay in the chat room, I'll just say goodbye to you privately in the chat room. Thanks for joining us. If the moderators could knock us off there because I'm on a different network system tonight, I appreciate that. And again, thanks for your time. Been a pleasure. Catch up on YouTube as well, keep on chatting platform as well, and don't forget to check out the lovely readers we got on tomorrow night as well. So thanks for your time again, Neil, and if the moderators could knock us off now, I appreciate that, and well done for everybody for tuning in. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.